Hello, Dr. Mike here with some Python for you, specifically for my Python for Data Analysis course. And we're going to touch upon what would be my last demo. I'm going to show something I added to it to keep my last demo a little more simple. I didn't add this component to this game I did. And I'll show it to you here. It has to do with looping. Now it is part of the content. You'll see in the last previous, like week 3 in this case. There's loops here and actually links to iterations, chapter 5 in the textbook. I'm going to show you one of the iterations, and we're going to use this iteration in this week, which is on ingesting data. So week 4, topic 4, if you would say, Python ingesting data. This is probably one of the mainstays for this course because you're going to be ingesting data into your notebook for analysis. So in any case, I'm going to go back and show you. So in the previous week, we did a game where we did a guess a number, right? And last week, I actually had a count or a guess variable, and I actually didn't use it. Oh, I'm sorry, a guess variable, and I didn't really use it. So because I was trying to keep it simple. But what we do is we could wrap our game. When we made the last one, it was guess the number. Did you make it or not? The game's done. In this case, though, I'm going to give you a couple of guesses. And I have set, and this extension of last week's here, while the guess is unequal to random number, keep playing. So this thing will play forever. You could put in a counter, and you could say while it's not equal to random number and it is less than the count. And you can see here, it's an important aspect here is this counter itself that increments every time I use it. So we'll walk through this here step by step. So first off, here is a guess, input number between 1 and 100. So let's go and run this cell here. And I'm doing some typecasting, you call it. I'm doing it here on the guess and the input line. And so it's actually 15, but I'll just say it's 20. And again, so 20 came in. So first off, if the guess equals it, I won. I didn't, so that if statement is jumped over. Else, so again, if then, else this, else while. Now before, the game would have ended and I'd had to run it again. But here this while loop is running, and it says, okay, while the guess is not equal to the random number, and here we see our previous lectures material, which is I'm doing some checking here if it's too high or too low. And I also added this here, I added a counter. So every time I go through this, if I hit this part of the branch, if it's too high, if the guess is too high, in this case it is, I print this out, try again, and then I do another input field, which is going to update the guess variable. But also more important here, actually this counter, I have a plus equal. You can do this a few ways. You might see it as, so make this a regular text field here. You might see it as, count equals count plus 1. That's fine too. Now what you will see is, you might see that there, you might see what the space is. There's something called being Pythonic, and I'm not really going to enforce this. There's actually something called the, I'll bring the link up here for it. I think it's the PEP 8 standard. So the PEP 8 style guide standard, just Google PEP 8 style guide. First off, indentation spaces, blank lines, comments, naming conventions, all this stuff is sort of laid out like here's how you should do it if you're going to be a more hardcore Python programmer. So how you import stuff. If you really plan to really dive into Python beyond just running data analysis in Jupyter Notebook, I would suggest you look at the PEP8 guideline, at least have it bookmarked. In the sense of just getting my data into the system and then doing the proper data analysis on it, right? Am I doing, correlation? Am I doing, what type of correlation, what's the distribution look like, things like that, more of the data analysis side. I don't care. Really, if you use count plus equals 1 or count equals count plus 1, use either one. So that's why it looks funny though, plus equal 1. That's a more Pythonic way to put this type of coding. So it's just going to add 1 to that. So it's going to take whatever the current value count is, it's going to add 1 to it. And I'm trying again. So okay, let's see. It was 15, right? I'll say, all right, well, I'll say 5. Not too low. Try again. All right. Is it, I'll say 15. And boom, you win. You got it in 3 guesses. Now, an important aspect here too is I did initialize these variables, and you don't need to do this normally. I can just say, count equals count plus 1. And if it didn't exist before, it'll create it for me, set it to 0, and add 1 to it. Here's the problem though. If it sets it to 0, and I look at this, it would say 2 guesses, right? 0, 1, 2. Start at 0. So I initialize this variable, it's called a variable initialization, as 1 because I know I want to have it set to 1. That way when you do get your counter guesses, they're correct. So again, I can go in and strap in a number of guesses. So num guess equals 10, and I can say while guess is not equal random, and num guess and guesses is less than or equal to num guess. You can go and you can build upon this, so you can build a more deeper game. So an important thing there, and that is sort of last week's material. I sort of stuck it back in here in this last week's material into this game here, which I did demo last week, but I didn't do the while loop. All right, so let's go ahead and go and do a new Python 3 notebook here. Now on that, we're going to expand upon and really going to look more at, and we're going to look at looping again, but this time we're going to look at the for loop. So for loops are really the pattern you're going to use for reading files. So let's actually go down the rest of the demo here. So this is, we'll call this for demo, and some markdown. Reading files. So week 4, Mike. And you can see here, you can create a nice little header. All right, so let's go ahead and just make this in raw. All right, so I have a little text field to play in. All right, so let's talk about reading files. Again, without going into the lecture material, which I definitely suggest you do. Look at learning activities that are posted in your shell. In this case, for topic week 4, ingesting data. There's going to be deeper videos in there from the publisher of this textbook, reading files, which is a really good job. And there's some links to other references here too. So with that said, let's go and actually read a file. So reading the textbook to you, our main way we're going to read a file is we're going to go ahead and use something called the open command. So, or the open, the open command. So the open command itself has a few different states to it. You can open a file in different modes. R for read, W for write. Let me go and put the equal sign inside there. Or A for append. Pretty important. If I'm creating an output, I want to make sure I open the proper mode. I either write to it. If I write to it, I will go ahead and just overwrite current example rows of data if I want to append to it. So keep that in mind. And also close. So most of the time for this demo and for this class, you're just going to do open read. And actually, and then I know it's not Pythonic of me. I forget to do the close. Because we're doing this Jupyter Notebook, when you end Jupyter Notebook, the kernel closes that file handler. And since I'm reading only from a file, there's no risk of corruption. That's the thing. If I'm writing to a file, I want to make sure I do the close statement. Close that file when I'm done writing to it. So very important if it's using close or append, or I'm sorry, write or append. you want to have the close. When you're reading though, you can just do an open, and by default, if I open a file and I don't give it an option, in this case, the file itself, and R for read, if I just leave it blank, it does read by default. So this is our default, is read in the open command. Just make sure you come across, again, all the Python documentation covers this, but a couple important aspects in dealing with files. Again, from this course, you're really going to be reading files in, manipulating the data in Notebook, and creating some output. And output will probably be graphs, statistics, things like that from your research. So, okay. Now, in the second point here, that's not in the textbook, but it's an important aspect of this class. Like we saw even with week 1, which was simply, can I install or get Jupyter running in some fashion, and can I open, run, and create a PDF output of the notebook. An important part is when you deal with files, file handling, not on the Jupyter side, but just on your side of the house, which would be your file management. So I have a Python demos folder that I've been using. In there I have some actual text files. This is actually the text file that's used for this assignment for this week, and I have one I'm going to use in my demo called parsers.txt. I've used in security testing. I'm going to use it to do some simple parsing with it. So I'm going to use this one for the demo. I don't think you have access to this file. If you do, maybe it'll be linked in the learning activities. But in any case, you will focus definitely on this file right here as this week's material they're going to parse through. But the important thing is I know where they're at. I want to know the path to the file. And if I'm going to be doing my own research projects, I might want to create a file structure, maybe like research with a subfolder called research1, and then maybe have a data folder, or just in that folder have my raw data. Maybe have an output folder to put output data so I don't overwrite, maybe risk of overwriting the input data. Things like that. So a little bit of planning comes into play. And knowing this too, because I'm in Python demos, I can see my files here too. Actually, you can click on them too. You get a nice little basic plain text viewer in Jupyter. Pretty cool. This is the one for this week. So nice little feature of, did you know that you can actually click on text files? So you can see I got 2 of my notebooks here. In this case, they're sort of green. They might look different if you have some color blindness, but they are running. You can see running right there. So week 4 demo is running right here. So I know I have files underneath. Now I'm going to give you a quick hint. You can do some shell interaction from Python. Now it's treated as Linux. So if I do ls, you can see this is a file list. Look familiar, right? Week 2, notes, passwords, week 3, week 4. So that is what is in this folder. So yeah, I actually can pass commands to my underlying shell in case my current folder, which if I do, I think I do pwd. It shows you I'm in users, mic, downloads. Again, I'm on a Mac, so it'll look different. That's called your file path. This is real basic stuff, but when you start off and you do a project, you'll download the maybe the source file. Maybe it's from an external source. Maybe it's from my shell. It's a text CSV file, whatever it may be, and you go open Python Notebook and you open it, and you're like, I import, open the file, and it says cannot find file, and you're like, well, why can't I find it? Gotta make sure the connection's there. So the way I do is I make sure the notebook I'm using is in the same folder as the text file, or vice versa. The text file is in the same folder as my notebook. So again, back to the file management aspect. So a little bit of housekeeping tips on the back end will definitely help you ease of use here within the notebook. All right, so let's go and do open. So now I can just open a file, but I'm actually going to attach my open file using the open command. I'm going to actually attach that to a parameter. So I'm going to call it a PW file, or I'm just going to say variable. I'm sorry, a variable. So a variable called PW file, and I'm going to open. And I can use actually, I do tab completion. So I put PA tab. You notice it says, oh yeah, well, here's what matches. There's a pass-through.txt file I can see. That must be what you want. There's a paste bin and a page. I'm not sure what those are. Those are called magic commands. I'm going to go on those later. That's it. So I run that. That's it. So you're like, okay, so what is this PW file? Is it working? And what kind of variable is it? So I can actually print PW file, and what you'll see is something called a file handler. In this case, a text IO wrapper, input output, and it's to say here's the name of the file. It's read-only mode, and the encoding. This could be good to know if you're dealing with an unknown file, a brand new file you got from a third party, a different source, and you open it and you start parsing it, and you get some weird parsing errors. Things are not parsing as you expect. Check the encoding and check the encoding support within Jupyter. Something to look at, just a little tip there. Most time it should be okay though. So again, if I was done, I would pass password file dot, sound familiar, right? Dot tab, you can see I have here, buffer detach, errors, flush, and so on, name, reread lines. There's a lot of options here. Write. Now I can't write to this file, it's read only, but close, right? I will close the file. I'm not going to do that because I still want to open, so I'm just going to comment that out. Leave it there so you can see in notes. Add a cell here. So again, if I was doing my work though, and I was writing to this file, and if I want to open this file for writing, then I would just do a W on here. But again, I don't want to do that. So again, we're going to take this file, we're going to read it in, and we're going to work through it. Now here's where the heart of it comes in. Take my notes here. All right, so we're going to use our first loop. So our first loop we're going to use is a for loop. And it's probably hard to tell here. I'm going to add some cells here so I can scroll up a little bit. There we go. Middle of the screen, easier to see. And also I'll zoom in too. Let's give this a little more. All right. So for, you can see it's fed head completion. It's an actual command. It might be hard to tell. It's bolded and turned green in my setup, which means it's, of course, it is a reserved word. It is a Python command. Again, you can go here and look at all the information for loop. I'll just give you a quick demo though. So I'm going to say for something and something, then do something. And when we read a file in, we usually read it line by line. The line reader, when we open a file, it usually opens it in the mode where it reads out to the end of the file. End of the file would be noted as a carriage return, or a carriage return itself is typically the default. Again, it's all going to be customized. You can create custom, what denotes end of file, I believe in the open statement. But for now though, let's keep it simple. I'm gonna call it line. So I'm actually creating a variable right here. I didn't initialize it. I didn't create it earlier. I'm just going to do it on the fly. It's called line. It could be called I. A lot of times you'll see I used in examples, meaning for iteration. It could be called poo. Call it var. Whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use the word line because I'm thinking of it's bringing the line in of text. For line in. Now again, this is a reserved word. It's turned bold here and green on my screen. For line in this case, PW file, then I'm going to do a colon enter. And you notice it's created now a substructure. It's done basically the indentation for me. It means that whatever is for each line in this file, it's going to do this. It's going to do whatever I put down here. And for now, let's keep it simple. Print that line. Now, if all worked good, if I run it, there we go. There's each line. You can see I can scroll all the way through. If I double, and by the way, with long outputs, if I double click, it collapses it. Click on it again, I get the full thing, which takes up several screens. Click once, and it sort of creates this nice little, so not minimized, but minimal window to show the text file. So cool. that's work. That's what I want, right? Let's go ahead and look at some stuff we can do. Oh, I have a different file. Okay, so I just looked at my notes. I have a different file, which I'll go grab. Oh, there it is. All right. I'm going to copy that file, go back to my downloads, and I'll paste it here. I need a little more prep work on my lecture. Let's go ahead and minimize this. All right. So now again, if I do ls here, you'll see I have a new file called 1234.txt. Let's walk through the process of getting this file open. So for now, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to actually close. I'm going to do a pwd file.close. .close. And that's it. So it closes that file off. I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to call it sfile equals open colon, and a 1, 2, again, because that I saw it there. 1, 2, hit tab, it completes it. I'm doing it as read only. That's fine. And in the same block too, I'm going to say, okay, for item in sfile, I'm going to tab key here to autocomplete, print item. All right, so again, I can run this cell. Again, you see it's not a very big file. It's pretty short, and it's just numbers. There's some text and QWERTY and stuff. This is actually a subset of that larger password file. Close. Okay. So now we can actually do, that's it. We just read a file in. So, I mean, that is really the basics of it. You're like, okay, I have read a file fully into a variable. I'm going to give you some stuff here. We talked about string handling before. Let's go and incorporate some previous topics into our loop. And we'll do a really quick parse. Now, we saw before, not everything starts with 1, 2, 3, 4. There's some BMW here, sun, temp, QWERT, Q, and so on. So we have some stuff here that does not start with 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, if you're not sure where to click, you're like, oh man, I clicked somewhere. Just go back to here, hit enter. It'll drop you into the correct indentation. All right. If, so the if statement, if item dot tab. All right, so remember, item is actually a string itself. So we know it's a string value. It indicates it's each item itself, the item itself is a line from that file. So, and that line is a string. So we have all kinds of stuff. We can capitalize, center, and we're going to come back to this a lot. We're going to parse with this. In this case, we're actually doing more of a parse. We're going to do a filtering, I guess, to be more specific. But I'm going to say, hey, if it starts with, check it out. Starts with. If it starts with, I'm going to tell it what I want to start with. If it starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think that works. This one, my notes here does. If it starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, colon, very important, colon, enter. You can see now I have indentations gone further in. Print item. Now if I run this, you can see everything I have, it only starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we, in essence, have just done not just to open a file, we've actually opened it and we've, I guess, parsed it to be precise. I think parsing is doing a little more precise work, or filtered it. Using a string, since it's a string, we use our string ability to go in and use starts with. So, and you're like, well, that's pretty cool. We've actually done that. Now, we can do all kinds of stuff here. If then else, we can actually then write it out, open another file to write to. Beyond, so I'm going to show you later. We're going to see how we can take something from this and we're going to put it into other things like pandas, NumPy, things like that. We're going to read files into a sort of a structure within Python so we can just do it within memory. Reading to a file, reading and writing from files is not the most optimal for input-output. It's best to bring it into memory as much as possible, operate within memory, and output the final results when you're done. Again, you're going to notice in this class, so a lot of the assignments are going to be, load this file. Here's a file. Parse through it and give me some stats from it. So we're going to go ahead and take that approach to the class, take that approach here. And I'll go ahead and start with this week's file. I'll give you a sort of a hint. So again, I'm going to be proper. I'm going to do sfile.close. I don't need to, really, to be honest. This is done as read-only, but it is proper form to close a file when done. If I was writing to the file, I definitely want to do that, though. So again, if we look at our files here, look at ls, we have mboxshort.txt. This is the file for this week's class. So I'm going to say mb file equals open. If I do mbox, I should do it mboxshort.text. That's all I need. Again, I'm read only. Then let's go and create a loop again. So for, we'll call it line in mb file. Oops, so I'll soft print line. So here's how I work, and this is the things you're going to come up with your own little workflow. You might do chunks and cells. You might work in one cell. And when it comes to my class, however you work is fine. It's the output that you get the correct output. That's really what it's about. And there's actually a lot of different ways to code stuff. I'll show you one way I code it. There might be a totally different way to code it. If you have any kind of programming experience, you might be like, well, I think there's a different way to do this. You might use different types of handling. You might use, catch, try blocks, error handling. That's perfectly fine. Again, I really look at the output. So again, boom. So I get all this here. Now, without reading I didn't go back and read this week's work, but I know you need to parse out a line that starts with a specific item here. We want a specific variable. Let's look at this week's work, week 4. I'll lead you down, get you started on it. I don't want to give you the actual answer though. You can see this is a Dropbox assignment. There's the link to the file. xds spam confidence. So we want a line that reads this. All right, so let's do this here. Let's go back to our notebook. And we can see, we'll look for that. That's sort of our key to look for. As X authentication, X content, XD spam confidence. All right. So I will just do this here. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to say if line dot starts with, and again, click here, colon, print line. So, well, it starts with type license full lines. Okay, so it's not working. So what I do is I might do this. I might do a print line up here. And real common to do with programming is to use the pound sign to comment out stuff below it. Go back and run it, and I'm going to double check my my parsing. So I don't want to actually use this yet though, because I don't want to give away the answer. I'm going to parse something else out of this that will probably give you down the right path to parsing and creating the correct output for this file for this class this week's material. So I want to do this. I'm actually going to parse something else. So I'm going to say if line starts with, and I'm going to use from. let's see if that works. Print line. All right, so it looks like it works. So handling errors and handling unexpected output is going to be something you're going to deal with a lot. I still deal with it. I write Python code. Actually, not really in Jupyter anymore. I write this Python coding as a contract work for cybersecurity, and I do it in what am I using? PyCharm, I think I'm using. And yeah, comment stuff out, putting print statements just to see where you are. Always check your output though, and go back and then refine it and double check. So it's not going to be 100% the first time. You're going to write some code, it's not going to work, or you're not going to get the expected output. So go back and rethink what you did. But you can see here, I want to show you something here that will come in handy for this week's assignment, which is we'll do some further parsing here. So again, I have this here, and I want everyone that came from this university, this email address. I just want everyone's email from this here. So I'm going to copy this here. So I can do another if statement. So we have nested. It's called nested if statements or nested statements. And say if not. So I'm introducing a value here. I'm saying if this is not in this output, that's all what it says. If not this, basically. Inline license, inline continue, and I'm going to hit return. I'm going to hit backspace once. Else really I'm going to say print line. So I've created a sort of my loop here. Go back to the top of the loop and get the next line. If it starts with from, grab it. If it doesn't have the side of it, then go back to the top of the loop again and keep doing it. So actually, I can annotate my screen here for that. So you can probably see here again. So what we have here is go fetch a line from this file. If the line starts from, grab it. And then check for this condition. If it does not have this, then go back and get the next line. So, sort of bad markup there for you. You get a better one than that. So again, let's see if it works. Okay, it worked. So I have just those. Now, further in this course, you're going to see you're going to have to split. Split stuff. So let's do this. Let's say a print line. I might say email equals line, and I can say I want to split this line here. What we could do is we could say take everything. This would be our delimiter here, and we can actually create a delimiter and split this off here. So look for a common delimiter, in this case the colon, and then we can drop the from and then grab the email addresses. To do something like that this week, because you're going to pull out a number, and it's going to lead you back to the previous week from this, which is make sure you put that number into a float in our case, because it's a decimal, and you're going to add to a float variable. So in any case, you can do more with this here. I don't want to do too much else, so I'm getting to my max time here. So, but be aware that when we loop through, we can do fors, continues. We can really build a structure of parsing right within here to get what we need. So for now, I'm going to leave it as it is. So we will come back to, what is a license line? And we'll come back to this. We'll come back to parsing more and more in the course. So I don't want to add any more than this right here, and this checking for, in this case, we're not checking for it if the line does not have this inside of it. So that's our further level of parsing that I've done. So in any case, I'm going to show you actually something too. I'm going to show you some examples. These are things called these notebook commands, magic commands. This is our tip here. So let's say you build a really big notebook and you have a lot of variables. You're like, well, which variable was which? I forgot, I have X, I have poo, I got var, I got foo, I got bad variable names. You do a % and whose, and you run that, and you can see it says, well, you have one called item, and it's a string, and this is actually what's currently set in memory right now. Right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is what it has in memory right now with a carriage return. There's one called line, it's a string, and it's currently empty. And you have these other ones here, and these were files. MB file, password file, S file. These were IO wrappers that were attached to coding. So, if I create a variable, let's do one here. Let's insert cell below. Run that. Again, now you should still see it here up here. Now name. So if I have a variable called name, this is pretty generic, and it's set from some other part of my notebook, I assume it's changed, but later on I'm getting some parsing doesn't work, I'm getting some unexpected results. Where you're at in the notebook, drop in a whose, %whose, and take a look at that name of that variable. Wait a minute, it hasn't changed, why not? Oh, I forgot to change it somewhere else, so I needed to run that cell again. I was expecting to be, named Bob. I changed it, but when I run it, I still get Mike. So again, I can always double check that. Go back, find that, run it, make sure my variables are set the way they should be, and voila, Bob's your variable. You're ready to go. So, in that case, I'll just leave my demo there. I'm sorry, I started getting into string parsing. I don't want to get into that too deeper than this. Takeaway is file handling, the open command, how it works. Most time in this class you're going to open for read only, which is fine. If you do write, make sure you close. And the biggest thing here is going to be this. You're going to open your file as a variable, and you're going to parse it with a for loop. You're going to loop through it. And that's going to be used a lot in this class. So you'll see in future demos I'll be doing for, so I'll be bringing a lot of files in and looping through them with the for. So anyways, that should hopefully come away with a quick little demo for reading files. And that should do it. Take care.